you kind of know where I stand on certain things. And I will double back to a lot of what this channel was originally about, but it was always somewhat flexible and somewhat whimsical in its ability to change. So I'm a big Forgotten Realms fan. I've probably read like 80 books. I've played the pen and paper game, I played the video games. So when I heard that Netflix was doing a Forgotten Realms TV show, I had originally heard that they were doing a Baldur's Gate TV show, and I'm like thinking, okay, they're probably going to do it based on Baldur's Gate 3, because that's after the Forgotten Realms fast forwards 100 plus years, and the whole spell plague thing, which really pushed me away from the series. I kind of like, let me take a break. I'm doing other things anyway. But you also had the movie. The Dungeons and Dragons movie was set in the Forgotten Realms. And that movie ended up, and I'm talking about the recent one. There have been like two before that weren't that good, but the last one set in the Forgotten Realms was pretty good. So that plus the popularity of Baldur's Gate leads to this TV show. My original take was that I don't want them to do anything original. Original. I want them to use an existing story, but at the same time, I realize with the popularity of Baldur's Gate, they'd probably lean towards Baldur's Gate 3. But from what I hear, Shawn Levy, who I don't really pay much attention to, I think the big film that he's directed is Wolverine and Deadpool. I'm not even sure who's technically directing this, because I think they're both producing it. And I'm not really even sure if the director matters, if the producers have this much control. I'm not that familiar with Drew Crevello. He's a producer. He doesn't have kind of the celebrity movie maker thing, but he's been behind some stuff. Like he's in the biz. If if I had like a friend of a friend of a friend that could get this to them or whatever, I would. I don't think it's going to go down like that. I'll probably share this on X and some other spots. But mostly, unless they see this, which I doubt, this is really just saying, hey, fans, this is my vision. What do you think? If anybody's in favor of this, share it. If this is like, different than what I'm normally doing, hear it out. And if you would like to see a show like this, share it. So I won't really give up that many spoilers, because the story I think that they should do, instead of just a random Forgotten Realms story, instead of just uh, Baldur's Gate 3, which is popular right now, or something new, and there's some good books. Like if you're going to do something based on an existing story, you could go to the books. But one of the books that really isn't rated that high, that I haven't read because I played the video game, is the book on Baldur's Gate 1. But that's where I believe they should take it. Because Baldur's Gate 1, it was just a good story, but because it was in a video game, and I guess it didn't translate well to a book, it didn't work all that well story-wise. Like Baldur's Gate 1 was a great game, but the story and the big plot twist was spoon-fed in a way that I don't think they should do I wouldn't recommend in a series. Like people that know the big plot twists, and I don't want to give any spoilers because maybe this gets a few thousand views or whatever, this circulates over time, and I don't want to give away, like, if just by chance They did do a Baldur's Gate 1. I wouldn't want to give away the big plot twist, but I would say that there is a big plot twist. And if you're going to have the first season the length of Baldur's Gate 1, you do not want to wait till the end like the video game does to give it away. Because with the video game, the big mistake with the story in the video game is it kind of takes you on this big roller coaster where a real person would say, hey, what the hell's going on? And there's people there that could answer them and they would hash it out. They would fight it out. And I'm mostly talking about Abdel Adrian, who's like the protagonist in the book and like the video game character. If you're playing the video game, the person you create. They're traveling with Jaheira and Khalid, and eventually they're going to just like say, hey, what the hell was going on? And Jaheira and Khalid, they know. They're Harpers. They knew Gorion, or whatever his name was, and they would tell the person. They would tell him. So if you do that, just that one thing, if you tell the person, maybe I'd say 30% in, that right there fixes what's only a problematic story because it spoon feeds people. And it kind of waits until it's just everybody knows it. And then it's like at near the end, this is the plot twist that you already knew. Or if you're a real person, you would have like demanded knowledge on what was going on. Also, if you tell that story first, if you get that story, not necessarily first, you kind of want to leave some memory for maybe 30% of the season. But once you get out the plot twists, then you can go back and focus on the stories of the Dead Three when they were adventurers. And you know, if y'all don't, I'm not going to talk that much about this because then it'll start to give it away. But you could also focus on Saravok, so he isn't just kind of like big, deep voice Darth Vader rip. I think if you do that, then you have an ensemble drama because you have so many of these characters leading up with Baldur's Gate 1 and then later Baldur's Gate 2, and then you could fast forward time to Baldur's Gate 3 and the series is cooking. Like you could just do the Baldur's Gates. And then if you want to you want to dip in and do some more Forgotten Realms stuff, then you could just have like another side God, what do you want to call it? What do you do like when sitcoms split off? Whatever that's called. I'm not remembering like a spin-off or a spoof, not a spoof, but a spin-off in a different location also in the Forgotten Realms. You can do that. I would go back to the books, maybe even the comic book, the Forgotten Realms comic book. That would be off the chain. But if I'm really trying to take advantage of Baldur's Gate's popularity, I do Baldur's Gate 1, not Baldur's Gate 3, and not just like something set in Baldur's Gate. I do Baldur's Gate 1 because it's a good story. It's just, it loses out because of the way it's told in video game format. One other thing I want to get to is in this, no matter what they do, if they do it, they gotta make better elves. Because let me go through some pics. I think this right here is from the Lord of the Rings TV show. And to me, this is a bad elf. This is just a human with pointed ears. Now, it's something that they'll do, and then you'll have the whole woke thing, especially with Netflix. And anti-woke is not really cooking. Anti-woke going broke. And word to my goddamn, what do you call it? My Robin Hood. Like that. The whole country is doing the anti-woke go broke thing. But and here's some other pictures. Like this dude is from The Witcher. And all of these, they work out well as half-elves. They work out damn well as half-elf. Now, this is back to, I believe this is Lord of the Rings, again, the TV show. But even Lord of the Rings in the movie with Elrond, I think this was this dude was. It looked like he got a 5 o'clock shadow. The problem is, and let me, before I get to it, this is one that kind of makes it. This one kind of makes it, even though this does kind of look like a, black chick with red skin, but when you factor the eyes and I would argue even the prognatism, and then they start to look exotic. And if you go to like, let me show you Todd Lockwood's elves. Todd Lockwood's Forgotten Realms elves are the Forgotten Realms elves. Like, this is how you do it. You have the big wide eyes, the tilted eyes, not necessarily slanted eyes as we typically see with different populations. You have black drow. You have drow that are a little bit smaller than everybody. You have like the more golden gold elf skin, the greenish brown wood and wild elves, the milky white moon elves, and they look exotic. They're not just humans with pointed ears. I don't know who this artist is, but they do it pretty well too. And speaking of the Forgotten Realms comic book, you had Vartan. Vartan was okay. I think he kind of looked exotic. He didn't look like just a human. He was a little bit lacking in the prognatism. Let me show some examples of that. This right here, the Egyptians, you see it with the Sphinx. That works out. And even like this, you don't even see it with that many Europeans, but this elf has more European features. And then you got the milky white moon elf. This is a good moon elf. But you see prognatism. And it works out, makes him more exotic, not looking like a human with pointed ears. This more half elf. This right here is a decent elf. I mean, doesn't necessarily fit unless this is more of a city elf that's more mixed, like gold elf mixed with moon elf, and then you can kind of get this skin color. This is Airy. Airy was decent. Just the eyes, ultra thin. Airy was decent. She was like this rare breed of winged elf. They got wings. This is Todd Lockwood's elves up close. Get a better picture. Wild elf. Other images of wild elf looking somewhat exotic, but still, I think what you really need, and this is Lockwood's drow, this is a good drow right here. It really is about them eyes. You get the eyes right. You get the head shape. Like, here's some drow, and I like that they're black. That's another thing. The minty blue drow of the video games, because you don't want the black people to be the evil ones or whatever. Drop that. Because when you're talking about what really made Forgotten Realms popular, yeah, the movie was pretty good. I don't know if it really killed in the box office, but it's probably doing well in the stream sites just because people hear, oh, there's a decent fantasy movie. Fantasy movies, when they're good, they do well. But one thing that makes them good is they have to look the part. They have to look like a fantasy, like a different world. So to me, these drow are all right, except for I'm not really feeling the head shape. Then you got Elistray, very thin. She's a goddess, so she can be whatever size or whatever. But even if she's not a goddess, it's just some random naked elf wandering around dancing with her sword. She looks the part, and she's also prognostic. I can't pronounce it all the time. I pronounce it enough. She's proggle. This dark elf is kind of borderline. Still has some human features. Kind of looks like, Afro-Asian with dark skin and white hair. So she isn't killing, but I like this one. This is killing. And the face shape, you can have some diversity. They don't all have to be they don't all have to have prognatism. But one thing I like about this is there's personality, and she is ultra thin. She's ultra thin. She doesn't look human. She looks more bubbly than the typical drow, but that's okay. Some drow are just different than others. millions of drow, they act different. Now here's a more vicious looking drow that works out well. Kind of blue minty, purplish complexion, but I can still rock with that to an extent. This is another drow. Face to me ain't really working. Not exotic enough, but it is black. This is black skin. Lockwood's moon elf. Lockwood's wood elf. Here's another moon elf from that one I showed earlier, that group. This is working. And for the same reasons I mentioned earlier. But I'll tell you one thing, like you can have an afro, like this afro, this from the hairline down just looks like a person with pale skin, almost like a vampire with pointed ears. But the hair, like if you were to put that hair on the other moon elf, on Lockwood's moon elf, that isn't the problem. It's almost like you have to have a certain amount of features that are unique and not Homo sapien. And in a sense, you also got to do that with the dwarves. The dwarves are a bit different. Now, this going left to right, Arctic dwarf, gold dwarf, shield dwarf, Durger, Erdnir, I'm not even sure how to pronounce the one that's second from the right to left. And then in the far right, you got a wild dwarf. With this, it's shield dwarf, gold dwarf again, both them two are repeated, Durger's repeated. Then it's one of the gnomes. The gnomes aren't really, you get somebody who's like a skinny dwarf with a fat nose, and you can mix them up. It's harder to ruin gnomes than it is elves. Like Lord of the Rings elves are just terrible. And if you're a Lord of the Rings fan and that pisses you off, good. Them elves are terrible. Like they weren't good in the movies. They aren't good in the TV show. The only difference is the TV show, they got black actors. That's about the only difference. But they're shitty elves regardless. Baldur's Gate 3's dwarves were kind of interesting. Like, if you look, like some of these are the shield dwarves right here. I'm just going to show a couple of them. Because shield dwarves are pretty simple. They're like your basic Lord of the Rings dwarves. You can just have a basic dwarf who kind of looks like a dwarf. And you're fine. But there's more kind of balance with gold dwarves, because here's a gold dwarf. Baldur's Gate 3, the video game, the gold dwarves were kind of like this dude, and this is another example. She's from the video game. Is they were more red, but like typically they're more like bronze or even goldish, like they're called, kind of like the gold elves. Then you got, like, this is right here what I would consider, like, you had the city elf. This is kind of a city dwarf. Like, if you take a certain look to a wild dwarf and maybe like this wild dwarf, and if you mix them with a gold dwarf, you might get someone like this dude. But I don't like that look. It ends up being like how you had with Lord of the Rings. You just got black actors as dwarves, and you can have that. Like, this would probably be a black actor or based on a black actor, because eventually you're doing like filtered deep fakes if you want to do it right. But you don't want it to just look like, to me, if you want to do it right. Like, this is an albino wild dwarf. This is a wild dwarf. This is a feral shield dwarf. So wild dwarves kind of have that, I would say Pacific Islander, Papua New Guinea type look. Maybe borderline African. Now this is a Udnir. I think that's how it's pronounced. These are like Durger, but they're given that minty blue complexion and the gray complexion. And I guess that works out. The thing that makes them stand out is they just typically don't have beards. And they're not evil like Durger. I mean, they're underground dwarves that don't have beards. It's kind of hard to mess them up if you really want to do one right. It should be pretty easy. Here's an example of a gnome. Very Forgotten Realms looking gnome. Quell's an example. Quell's, I think that's what this dude's name was. Yeah, I think this was Quell from Baldur's Gate 1. Now, here's another version of Quell. And like that's the way that sometimes they'll sneak in a whitewash. They'll do the race swaps, but every now and then they'll race swap it the other way. But see, either one works. And then you got Tiax. Tiax would be Tiax is an example of why it would work well as an ensemble cast, an ensemble drama even, because hardly anybody really got into a character like Tiax. But Tiax, for people who wanted evil parties and wanted to grab characters and quicker who were I think you get Tiax later. So, but that character's there, and you can have like multiple parties, especially with the plot as it is. The Baldur's Gate character art, some of it really missed badly. Like Zan it didn't really look like a moon elf. Viconia did not look like a drow at all. Then they gave her the blue. And let me wrap it up. These are halflings. The Lockwood's halflings were smaller. These are smaller, like narrower, lighter than your hobbits. And the criticism of the Forgotten Realm third editions was what do you do with, how do they even work in an adventure? Like, they can't fight at that size. But the thing where halflings work out is what gnomes have in terms of an edge. Also, these are half elves on the far right in this image. So you're like, well, they're they don't look all that elven. These were the half elves, Lockwood's half elves. So he made them so exotic that even the half elves look more like full-blooded elves than what you typically see on something like The Witcher or Lord of the Rings. But the halflings, being that small, they made up for it with luck. So yeah, half orc, half elves, and then you got a human on the top left. That's it. That's really what I want to see from the show. I don't expect Levy and Cordello to do it. Levy and Cordello. So this will be some I told you so. And if they by chance are like, yo, let's do Baldur's Gate 1, we're in business. Because they could be doing Baldur's Gate 1 or Baldur's Gate 3, which, if I had to bet, I would say it's going to be neither, and they're going to they're going to follow up on their own story. And I think that's a little bit too egotistical, because there's so many great books to choose from. And I'm not even suggesting one of the books that's great. I'm suggesting Baldur's Gate because it's marketable and it's a great story if told right. The book didn't tell it right. Allegedly, I didn't read it. I've read a bunch of other Forgotten Realms books. The video game didn't tell it right for a reason that I already covered. But if you just do that one thing and you not try to make this a big late game plot or late series plot twist, it works out well. And you'll have mystery at the beginning if you play it right, and you won't milk it to the point where it's ridiculous, like the video game does. And then once you reveal it, that will open up entire episodes where you can go back in time and tell some very interesting stories about the Dead Three. So I'll leave it at that.